right, welcome in, boys. It is a recap episode from week 5. We're back to our normal setup for the pod. Everyone's back home today. Clayton, welcome in.
Yeah, it's definitely nice having the normal setup. No hotel rooms, no airports, just back home. Um,
Got the intro
just for
back.
this week though, just for this week. So
Yep.
lots of moving parts, but nice to be back home this week.
We're gonna keep making it work. Keep bringing you 2 episodes a week. Keep all the fantasy football info updates coming. So happy to be here. But with that, let's get right into it. So we'll start off with a little recap of our standings here. I gotta start off here, boys. It's a tough climb to get back to the top, but it's been worth it. It's lonely up here now. It was a little tie last week between me and Lucas. We'll get to some more info on that later. But it feels good to be back on top, looking down on everybody. So I'm feeling pretty good at 9-1. It could very, very easily be 10-0, and I would be 10 times more obnoxious. But Sam, you did your job one week. Um, but with that, Clayton, anything stand out to you here?
Yeah, it's pretty top heavy. Obviously you leading the way, 9-1, but Lucas, Tanner, and Casey all at 7-3. There's some breathing room there. Um,
Yeah.
And then, really, if you look at the bottom three, which I'm definitely a part of, we're slipping and we're slipping fast. I think playoff hopes for all of us are dwindling. 2-8 for me really couldn't feel worse. We can get into my team in a little bit, but injuries just seem to hit me left and right. I'll give Tanner a little shout out. He's been dealing with some injuries too, and still to be
Yes.
7-3. Good
Gotta
on
love some of
him,
the
but.
storm.
Yeah, I think pretty competitive. Kind of, I'll put 1 through 4 is kind of competitive, and then 5 through 7 is kind of competitive, and then us down at the bottom, 8, 9, and 10, we got to pick it up, or we could be, just
It's getting late
trying to
early.
play spoiler, I guess, at this point. I don't know.
I
I
will
think I think there's still small chances of playoff hopes, but dwindling as we speak.
I will say that we're finally at week 5, and my big claim all year has been last year. I started 1-9 when we introduced this new rule with 2 games per week, and climbed my way back to 14-14, made the playoffs. I think my playoff chances were sitting at like 5% at that point. So it can be done. And the difference between 6th and 10th right now is 2 weeks, really. I mean, it looks like a wide gap because of the 2 games, but it's 2 weeks. So, you know, it can change quick. I would be willing, to bet that this is not the playoff standings. Well, the playoff teams even the six that one person from 7 through 10 will make their way into the playoffs. So we'll see who it is. All right,
I like the
and
hope.
our our point standings um, have finally switched around a little bit at the bottom here, and I guess near the top as well. So yeah, they don't really
Yeah.
follow perfectly with the standings and record anymore. Starting with Sam, Sam is sitting at fourth in points and fifth in the standings, so only one spot difference. So I guess the biggest swings are Tanner, who is fourth in the record-wise standings and sixth in points, but pretty
Yeah,
close.
and I will say that that's maybe why he's able to have the record he is with the injuries. He doesn't have a ton of points allowed, um, and he's still putting up decent points. I'm not trying to say he's not, but that is he's getting a
Definitely helps,
little not getting the injury luck, but kind of getting some of the points allowed luck. I'm getting the points allowed luck,
but also
but
the
still
bad
that
injury
doesn't
luck.
matter because my injury bad luck is killing me. So, it's tough to say. Um, you know, at the end of the day, you got to put points up. My team's not doing it. Tanner's team is. So even though he kind of does have the points allowed luck with the bad injury luck. I have the bad injury luck and the points allowed luck, kind of like he does. But my team doesn't score anyway, so I mean it doesn't matter.
I have to point out again as well, the top here. Two different ways that people have gotten to the top. I'm 7 points away from the most points against. So despite everyone's best effort, still can't keep up. Lucas, despite me scoring the most points of the week against him this week, is still well in the lead for least points against, 463. I mean, we just that just goes to show the the start that he had. I mean, and that's not to take away the skill of his team. He's got some good players and they put up some good points. Um, but the difference, this 140 points between him and I, 30 points a week. So that's a big difference. People need to start putting some points up against
Well,
Lucas.
you can even add Casey to that list. I mean, he's second
Right.
for least points allowed too, and he's up there at 3. So, definitely
It
a
helps.
little, yeah. I mean, definitely doesn't hurt.
Does not hurt. Averaging 120 over here, boys. Just let you all know. So you better bring your A game if you're playing against me. All right, let's talk about some matchups. We're starting with Tanner versus Sam. We both picked Sam in this. I think part of that was we got the sneak peek at Puka, and this was a fairly tight game. Both people put up some good points here.
Yeah. I think Tanner did a great job this week. Some late injury news with Chuba. Did not go pick up Rigo Dow, but he did make a good pickup when Lamar Jackson said he wasn't going to play and Justin Fields. And Justin Fields put up 27. Justin Fields does not seem to be the problem in New York, in my opinion.
To be fair, it was a
Um,
lot of garbage time points, but that's part of fantasy. Um, the Jets are going to be playing from behind. But
yeah,
I guess football wise, I'm not giving a whole lot of praise to Justin Fields in the way that they've played.
fair enough. I've seen the stats though, and I mean, you look at the Jets defense; they're not doing anybody any favors there. But I will keep going down the list there. Javante, who tore up the Jets,
Yep.
continues to just absolutely kill it for Tanner. Ladd finally got him a touchdown and some decent points. Pickens, that looks like a good move, and then
Yeah.
the tight end pickup in Ferguson has been excellent. Maybe a tight end pickup that Sam should have played. But looking at Dak, I don't know if Sam called Dak up after Joe Burrow got hurt, but um, Dak has definitely delivered, even with a hurt
Yes.
CD Lamb. So there is that. I mean, Puka keeps doing his thing. HN keeps doing his thing, and the trade, him getting Tony Pollard and Pollard putting up a respectable week. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously that
He's
helps
looked
too.
good. Yeah, and the only questionable thing I'll say, I mean, I Tanner explained it in the group chat about his Justice Hill play, and I could kind of see it. It did seem like Baltimore was destined to lose that game, and he scored some garbage time points the week before, and with the injuries, you could see it. But that didn't work out, or else he could have had a much bigger week. Into Scott and Joey, we both got this one right. Um, Scott won. Poor Joey has. We got to talk. what happened here this week? Um, so we do the top 5 points scorers on the week get an extra win, and the bottom 5 get an extra loss. Joey has had some of the worst run of luck in fantasy that I've seen these past 3 weeks. Started 3 weeks ago against me, I believe. He lost the head to head by 1 point. I actually got a points win that week. But then last week, he lost to Lucas by 1 point. So back to back 1 point losses. And I believe that one was also for the 5th spot in points because Lucas managed, I think that's right, but I'm not 100% sure. This week, Joey tied for the 5th spot in points at 110 with Sam, and we were trying to figure out how to score it and went to decimal points. So instead of the whole numbers that we usually have played with, we actually accounted for the extra yards, and people got that players got that didn't count towards a full point. And Joey came out about a point and a half behind Sam. And he got another 0-2 week. So Joey's been about 3.5 points away from 3 extra wins, going from what would be 1-9 to 4-6, and that's tough. That's brutal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's worse, losing like that or having the injuries. I'm obviously dealing with the opposite of Joey, so for me right now, I feel like it's the injuries, but I could definitely side with Joey a little bit. I've had
And
a
a
couple
couple extra
close
things.
games,
The
but
close games twice have been decided by players dropping the ball before the end zone.
that is true. That is true. That
Adonai
is very
Mitchell
true.
cost Daniel Jones a long touchdown, and then Amari DiMarcado dropped the ball at the one again. Um, so tough to talk about Scott a little bit. Kyron Williams had that great start. I think that's part of the reason we both picked Scott.
Yeah.
But then Rashad White, a pickup with Bucky Irving hurt, worked out very well for him. And then Jaden Daniels coming back, put together a solid week, a couple of touchdowns, I believe. Um, that got Scott got the win.
The Rashad White pickup, on Twitter, some people were saying Sean Tucker was the guy. Scott held strong, went with Rashad White, and gets rewarded. Big week for him. A couple tutties always helps. So good week there. Yeah, Joey's, DeMarcado could have had another, I guess that'd be
A
8
lot of
points,
points.
I think.
Well, at least. So 6
Well, he
plus
gets,
the bonuses, and then
yeah,
minus
I
the
think the
fumble.
bonus would be, it's bonus either 2 or 3, so it's either 8 or 9 points there.
But then you also
You
lose
know,
the fumble.
oh, that's true. Yeah, yeah, I
So
didn't
add
even
in a couple
think
there. So
about that.
that's about 11 points.
So definitely would have been in the top 5 of scoring on, would have made this game even closer. So just tough week for Joey there.
Brutal. Good luck next week, Joey. All right, Kevin Casey. Casey pulled this one out for me. Kept my belief in Casey. I think I might have picked Casey every game so far this week. Clayton, you picked Cub. The team didn't get it done. I'll let you start.
Yeah, Woody Marks. Interesting that they're gonna win 44-10, and he gets 2 points when last week he looked so good.
And it said
That
they were
was
going to give him more touches, it sounded like.
Yeah, so that was tough for me. Um, the Giants D against the Saints didn't come through. Aubrey had a miss that didn't help. Um, at the end of the day, though, if I had to point my finger, it'd be on Woody Marks. I mean,
Yeah,
and
two
then
points is
I don't
tough
know,
to come
I
back
don't know
from.
what it is with the Seahawks. Like Walker looks good from like the 20 to the 20, and then he doesn't look good inside like the 10, and then Charbonnet
Especially
comes in
within
and
the
then he gets
5.
the
Yeah.
yeah, and he gets a touchdown. So, that's not helping Cub much either there, but um I gotta say, I mean, gotta point the finger at Woody Marks, and I will highlight Cubs pickup of Michael Carter even after Joey picked up DeMarcado. Carter was 17, good week for him. Looks like he'll be startable for the next 3 weeks.
And to be fair, I feel like I did hear that Carter was going to be the starter.
Yeah, I saw
And
on Twitter he was going to get the early down work, and then
yeah.
DeMarcado was going to be the third down back. So I heard the same thing.
And then going to Casey. Casey got, I hate to say that, but almost lucky with the Bucky Irving injury this week. He was looking for a running back to replace Bucky after it came out that he was going to be out with an injury. And about around the same time, Rico Dowdle found out that he was going to be starting for Chuba because he was out with an injury. And Rico went off for 200 something yards and a touchdown, a couple of catches, and just looked dominant against the Dolphins. Put up 34 points. top running back of the week, even with people like Jonathan Taylor scoring 3 touchdowns, Christian McCaffrey playing like Superman. So that really pushed Casey over the top. That 200-point bonus is huge. And then Baker put together another Baker week. Jamar Chase got in the end zone a couple of times, looked like vintage Jamar Chase. And then the rest of the team did not really show up for Casey. But but you get those 3 massive weeks like that. You get just over 90 points, it looks like, from those 3 guys. You're going to have a good chance of winning, even if you don't have a lot of production from the other players.
Yeah, I mean the Regal Dowd will pick up absolutely huge for him, and then I don't know. I think at halftime, I think Jamar Chase was leading the Bengals team in solo tackles, and then came back in the second half. And Browning, I think on one of them got lucky. The other one, Jamar Chase absolutely cooked the guy. He was open
Right.
by 30 yards. But there was one, Browning's rolling right, triple coverage, just it must have been a prayer ball. Jamar Chase makes a great play, but huge week for him. Nice to see the 101 performing. And then they did get Flacco this week, so interesting, or today even. I'm
We'll
interesting
see.
to see what that will do for Jamar Chase.
Flacco did not look good in Cleveland, in my personal opinion. Flacco, it doesn't excite me that much, even if Flacco starts. I mean, he might chuck it deep a few times, but he looked terrible in Cleveland, and that offensive line is bad, and he can't move. So I'm not too sold that that'll be a big upgrade. All right, get into your game, Clayton. I might have to quit picking you.
I might have
I
to start.
keep
I might have to stop picking myself.
I keep doing
Um,
it, and I can't get it right.
this is 2 weeks in a row that the Chargers have let me down, or not two. Well, not 2 weeks in a row. 2 games that the Chargers have let me down. The first one was against you when I needed like 6 or 7 points, maybe 8 points from Hampton.
Yeah,
I think it was like I want to say it was 6 to tie, maybe 7 to win,
it was not
and he
many.
couldn't get it done. This time I had Justin Herbert at the 1 yard line. He gets a touchdown instead of throwing a pick. I get a win. So
Yeah,
I, absolutely brutal. I will say, and then Hampton gets hurt. I already have Kittle on IR. CD Lamb's out.
might as well
Add
go on IR.
Hampton to the list. I mean, Chase Brown dealing with the Joe Burrow injury. That doesn't help. So absolutely brutal in terms of injuries. Can't
Yeah,
get good luck. Like I think every week this year, maybe besides one, I've had a 90% chance to win. And I'm saying this is like after the early games. Like I'm not saying like, oh, this is like the first 5 minutes of the early games. Like and I my team just can't close. I
against me, I think
it's
you went into that
absolute.
Monday night game with 85, 90% chance. Last week, I know you had it. This week, it was very high. I think you were projected 120 at some point
I was
going into
projected
the
like
afternoon
after the early
games.
games. I was projected to like score the second most points and can't even get top 5 points. Can't even beat Bo. The black magic Bo put on my team this week was absolutely incredible. I mean, like everything he needed
Everything went
for
wrong.
him to go right went right, and then the fact that Hampton gets hurt. And I'll even go back to Judkins had a 54-yarder get called back in the very early morning game on the weakest, softest holding call I might have ever seen. So that's I don't know. That's like again, that's another big bonus touchdown.
Yep.
That's 50 some yards. So that's 5 plus 6 plus 2 plus I don't know if that puts him into a different bonus, but I mean, I just can't catch a break. The injuries aren't helping, and then on the scoreboard in the final minutes, my team can't figure it out either. So that's just how I stand. Let's highlight Bo though
Couple of
because
bright
he did
spots.
win.
You got Judkins, and he's a good pickup. So got a couple of bright spots. And CD should be coming back. Bo gets his first head-to-head win. Congratulations, Bo.
Huge.
Love to see it for
Um,
you.
Mecca was breaking my heart every single time he caught the ball. He looks
He's awesome.
absolutely amazing. Just huge. Huge for Bo. Barkley had a 40-yarder that didn't help my cause. Gibbs is still Gibbs.
He caught the touchdown.
Um,
I think that was something I said when I was in the airport, that Gibbs is liable to catch a touchdown from Goff and have that count double for you. And I think that happened close to the end. That kind of sealed the deal.
yeah, well, if Hampton would have been healthy on that final drive, maybe he could have caught a touchdown. But
It's true.
again, injuries just every week. Just it sucks.
It does suck. But congrats, Bo. One thing I'll say at the bottom there, Kamara's looked tough. It seems to me like the Saints are trying to keep him healthy to trade him. So we'll see if that comes through. And yeah, let's go on to the game of the week. You love to see it. You just love to
Yeah,
see
I
it.
think I'm gonna start with this one. Believe Ryan, you were the highest scorer, right?
Yeah, I was.
Another highest score week for you. I don't think that's your first. Um, I'm gonna talk about your team because I know you want to talk about your team, and I just want to talk about a good team instead because I always have to talk about my team. My team sucks. So Patrick Mahomes, looking like Patty Mahomes. I know they didn't get the W, but I think he's the second ranked quarterback in fantasy right now, which back to putting up big numbers, which I kind of like to see. I'm not gonna lie.
He's that dude, especially
I know
against the
Mahomes
defense that
versus
everyone said was very good.
yeah, I know Mahomes versus Brady was kind of a talk there. I think it's kind of cooled off a little bit, which makes me feel better. But he's a fun player to watch, and I like watching fun players do good. So good to see him putting up numbers. Jonathan Taylor is absolutely incredible. He's also very fun to watch. Scattaboo, one of my favorite picks of yours, just value wise, but not even as good as the player below in Debo Samuel. That just I like watching Debo. He's just a little tank out there. I think he's a top 10 wide receiver right now in
Number 8.
fantasy, and you got him so stupid late. Kelsey, he looked good. I will say, I did not mind James Cook not looking good against the Patriots on Sunday night. I will say
First dud from
there
our
was a
running
little,
backs.
yeah, did have a little parlay going, and I took the over on him in yards, and I should have taken the under, or else that one would have hit. He was the only leg that didn't hit in one of my parlays, but I mean, when the leader of your team and Mahomes gets it done, and like everybody else is contributing, you're a tough team to beat. So
That's why you pick
shout
him
out
number one.
you.
That's why you pick a great team leader. I mean, you pick the best player in the league at number one. It just, or number 10, I guess, but in the first round, just makes sense. Um, yeah, I just you covered all of it. I'll just say I think going into last week's game, my receivers were a big question. I mean, we knew that I had some pretty great running backs. The receivers were kind of a question mark, and I think between Debo, Waddle, now not pictured here because I didn't play him, but being the number one option in Miami, and Xavier coming back and looking like a stud, even if he's only got 8 points, his freaking ankle swelled up on the plane, which threw me for a loop on Monday night. But they're playing great, and it really shored up a weak spot, what looked like a weak spot on my team, and now I think they're looking pretty good. Going to Lucas. You picked Lucas, I think, because of the early CMC game that we talked about. He went off a little bit, but the rest of the team was kind of disappointing by his standards. Garrett Wilson caught a late touchdown. He's still been looking great. Um, Hertz had the Eagles play weird games, but he ended up with 22 points, so you can't complain about that. Brees had 17. I think he got in the end zone as well. But the rest of the way, Travis Etienne didn't play up to what his standard has been. McBride didn't play up to what his standard has been, and despite putting up, a decent score, 20, you could use 20 more. Good
Yeah,
game,
I
Lucas.
mean, he did lose the kicker early, a kicker that's been the number one kicker. I don't think he makes up quite the difference of 19 points, though. Um, yeah, tough. I think between the kicker and ETN. But again, I mean, you put up 126. That's a good week. It's hard to beat 126.
It is hard to beat 126. So better luck next time, Lucas. Better luck next time, everybody. We'll see who can try to catch up. All right, little special way to end the pod today. We've got some. Oh, sorry. No, we'll update these picks. So Clayton is sitting at 9-16. I'm at 15-10. So that's about. I think I. So I'm like 60% ish there. You're at like 40.
Yeah, this is kind of going like my fantasy team is going, and it's not very good. So, you know, bummer. It's just a bummer.
It is a
I get
bummer.
not getting much right in the football season this year. The Devils start their regular season on Thursday. The NHL regular season started today, so looking forward to some Devils hockey. Not gonna lie.
Fair enough. Fair enough. There's still a chance here, so we won't buy the tickets yet, but we'll have to start thinking about it. All right, now for the special way to end the pod today. We'll start off with some team MVP. We talked about we were going to do this before, and we finally had some time to put it together. So we're going to go from last in the rankings to the first, and that starts with Joey. We picked JSN here.
I mean, how could you not? You look at Joey's team and you look where he drafted JSN. I mean, he's a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy, puts up points every week, very consistent. It's not like it's just like a boom or bust type of guy.
Yep.
Um, just absolutely huge for him.
Darnold's favorite target by far. Yeah, been great for him. Bo is next. A little bit of a strange pick here. We picked Abuka, even though Bo didn't draft him. Lucas drafted him, but traded for him last week, so fairly recently. But he has looked so good with Baker and the Bucks that we kind of had to put him here. And some of those higher picks have been not disappointing, but not living up quite to the hype. So we thought this fit well.
I would also say he's one of the reasons he won this week, which is his first head-to-head win. And
Right.
so, you know, you get your first head-to-head win, you get you after the trade, and he's the one of the main reasons you get it. That's why he's at the MVP spot.
Player worth an MVP. Clayton is up next. We picked Quinchon here. I'll let you go for it.
Yeah, I mean, just from where we drafted it, or just from where I drafted him, and what he's been able to do since he's been back on the field, he's definitely been a bright spot to a team with a lot of doom and gloom. I will say I did get Amon-Ra in the second round, and he's the second rated wide
Yep.
receiver right now. So there's a couple bright spots on my doom and gloom team, but just the value of Judkins, I think he was, I don't know, 8, 9,
Right.
10.
Later
One of
middle rounds.
Yeah, one of those rounds, and for him to basically be averaging RB1 ish numbers since he's been back on the field, it's hard not to put him at my MVP.
Even this week against a good Minnesota defense with the rookie quarterback, he looked like a bright spot in that Browns offense. So great pick. With
It's probably the
Scott,
Browns MVP as well.
he is probably the Browns MVP. Probably end up that way. With Scott, we went with Keenan Allen, another non-drafted guy, not drafted by the team, but Scott picked him up really early. I believe it was after week 1, and he's the 15th overall receiver right now. I think he's been very consistent up until this week, where I think he had 7, but up until then he's been great.
Yeah, I think when you look at Scott's team, a lot of guys are performing at or around where we think they should have been. Um, so it's tough to kind of have an MVP that is like, someone that
A
it feels like
standout.
you're consistently scoring like huge numbers. But when you get the value of a guy you added who is, middle of the road wide receiver 2 for our league, I mean, that's huge. And that definitely
Yeah,
helps whether you're playing him in the flex or like he did this week in the wide receiver 2 spot. So that's kind of why we have him there.
I like it. With Cub, we went with Josh Allen. This one was kind of tough to pick as well. Cub didn't have any super standout players there. Um, Jacobs has been performing like he should, and he's been a great running back, but it's kind of where you drafted him. Um, what I think what this kind of boiled down to is that in week 1, Josh was so good, I think he scored about 40 points. Probably got Cub, the win there. I can't remember the exact matchups, but like you said, you win a week for somebody like that, and it makes a good case for an MVP.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen is the number one quarterback in fantasy for our league, so tough not to put Josh Allen there. Um, we talked about Cortland Sutton being 10 and being a wide receiver. Cub kind of took a little bit later, but Cub just doesn't play him. So
Hasn't played him.
it's tough to have him in the spot when he kind of goes wishy washy on playing him. But um, looks like he's going to be in the lineup this week. And so, but it's hard not to have the number one quarterback as your MVP.
Enjoy it while it lasts. Pat will catch him soon. With Sam, this one was probably the easiest pick with Puka. Puka was still drafted in the first round, so expected to be a high-end wide receiver one. But the dominance that he's shown, being the overall wide receiver one, and I think by a pretty wide margin, catching 10, 12, 13 balls a week, scoring touchdowns, he's been amazing. And he's the reason Sam was able to beat me, it feels like, um, and get my one loss.
Yeah, I mean, wide receiver one on the league. He's the second most points for guy if you don't look at quarterbacks. Um, he took him slightly later in the first, and he's performing like he should have been the 101 or the 102. Sam did have a couple other guys that like we did talk about. I mean, Achan's putting up like decent numbers, and like I
Dak was
mean
his
Michael
last pick.
Pittman, yeah, Dak coming in after Bro's been hurt. Michael Pittman was a late round pick, and he's rated at 12 right now. So Sam did have a couple guys. It was easy, but he did have other guys that we talked about. But when you have a guy
Right.
who's first off number one in his position and like put averaging, he's a non-quarterback averaging 21.6 a week. It's tough not to have him as MVP.
Gotta have him up there. All right, for Tanner, it's Javonte Williams and Clayton. I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, this is probably my steal of the draft right now. I mean, I think there's a couple out there, but when you take a running back as late as Tanner did with Williams in the 10th round, and he's the running back three, and he just looks like he's gonna keep performing at that level, it's tough not to have him as the MVP. He potentially might be my MVP of the whole league. We didn't do that. We didn't pick that, but I mean, you could argue it very easily that he'd be the MVP of the whole like league right now. Just when you look at where he's drafted him. I mean, I know he doesn't have the most points, but where he drafted him, it's tough not to have Javonte's just that that high.
Especially in a league that in the day and age where there's so many committees and it's hard to find running backs, to have a guy like that. And I'll be the first to admit I did not believe in Javonte at all this year, even after the initial week that he had in week one where he looked good and like a couple like 1 yard touchdowns. Won't be sustainable. He's sustaining it right now, and he actually looks decent. Well, he looks very good running for Dallas, um, whereas I thought he was kind of cooked. So he's looked great. Great pick there. With Casey, we went Baker. This is one of my favorite players in the league. Um, could MVP of Casey's fantasy team and quite possibly the MVP of the NFL right now. The way that he's playing, and he's got the Bucks at 4-1. The one game they lost was competitive with the Eagles, and they've been down Mike Evans, a bunch of linemen, a bunch of defensive players. Um, Baker's looked awesome. He's been consistently putting up points for Casey, been steady as his quarterback since week one. Um, has had some nice hookups with Bucky Irving to get Casey a win last week, and yeah, just looked great.
Yeah, when Casey drafted Baker where he did, I thought, ugh, maybe a little high. But he has the third most points in all of fantasy football for our league. And, he's very consistent. It's not like a big boom or bust guy. It's 24, 21, 18, 26, 29. Just gets it done every week for Casey. It's always helpful when you have a guy who's going to score about 20 or at least 20. And that's what Baker's doing.
We've been able to count on him for sure. All right, with Lucas, we've got Garrett Wilson. Tough to put a Jet on here with the way that that team has looked, but again, we're going to go back here to the value. The value that Lucas got Garrett Wilson with, picking him in, I think we
The
decided what
sixth
was the
round.
sixth round.
Yep.
Um, and he's the wide receiver 5 right now. Again, hard to find that. Similar story to Javonte, just not quite as elevated.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson, he's definitely benefiting from the garbage time points, which, in fantasy, points are points, right? So it doesn't matter
Exactly.
there. We did talk about CMC a little. CMC's the running back 2 right now, so did mention CMC a little bit, but just like you said, the value he got Garrett Wilson at, it's tough to beat that, and that's kind of why we have him over CMC.
Yep. CMC, another guy we love watching play. And finally, the current leader in fantasy. We're putting him as number 1 leader in fantasy points, non-quarterbacks, right? Jonathan Taylor.
Yes.
Second round pick, early second round pick for my team. He's put it on his back. I think he's got 2 separate games where he's got 3 touchdowns, a couple 30-point games that are bound to get you close to winning your head-to-head matchup, and almost assuredly you get that kind of performance from running back, you'll be fighting for top 5 in points. Um, he seems so consistent every week, getting in the end zone or getting over 100 yards or doing both. The Colts have looked awesome with Daniel Jones, really supports that offense, and makes Taylor the easiest lock of really anyone right now in the league.
Yeah, averaging 23.2 points. He is 4th in total fantasy points behind Josh Allen, Mahomes, and Baker Mayfield. So he's obviously killing it. Like you said, he's the number 1 non quarterback right now in points. So there's no way you can't put him as an MVP. As much as you wanted to put Patrick Mahomes in there,
It was
we
close.
couldn't.
I fought for you, Pat, but
I couldn't let that happen with the season Jonathan Taylor's been having. But, um, you know, Pat's been up there too, so it was a conversation.
yeah, other options was Debo, but I don't think I've played him enough for it to count and feel good about it. So, alrighty, let's move on to some sadder stories. Each team's MDP, the most disappointing player. We're gonna go in opposite direction here because we think it makes sense to end with the most disappointing player on the most disappointing teams. For mine, again, pretty easy. T. Higgins, the Burrow injury has hurt a lot of people. It's a toss up between whether it's hurt T. Higgins or Chase Brown, I think, the most, because Jamar Chase is still playing fairly well. T. Higgins has become basically unplayable for me, even though he caught a touchdown this week. But since week 1, it's just been brutal.
Yeah, Jamar Chase is still wide receiver 6, so um, tough to tough to say he's obviously been impacted, but not in the way T Higgins has. T Higgins is a wide receiver 43 right now, averaging 6.2, has been out of Ryan's starting lineup as of
Was the
late.
first
So
receiver I picked
yeah,
in the fourth
so
round.
pretty easy pick there.
Yeah, not much more to say about him. For Lucas, we went with RJ Harvey. Lucas's team was kind of tough to pick this for because he's just had so many good picks. But this might be the kind of lone dark spot from his draft.
Yeah, RJ Harvey's the 37th ranked running back, and it's not like Lucas took him to be a starter. So it's not like the end of the world there for Lucas, but when you look at his team, it's tough to pick someone that hasn't lived up or exceeded the draft value. And this is maybe the only guy with the hype of, he could be the RB1 in Denver. Is he going
Right.
to be Sean Payton's Kamara? there was outside hype, but at the end of the day, it just kind of came to this is maybe the only guy that's not. And then you look at like J.K. Dobbins and just the situation in Denver. It's not like J.K. Dobbins is giving that job up. Um, so that's kind of why R.J. Harvey was the pick there.
There was one week where it looked like you might, and then this week kind of fell back down again. So, yeah, not the pick. Casey, this is another high pick. We went with Derrick Henry. Uh, After week one, Henry has been brutal. He's been fumbling. He's gotten in the end zone a number of times, but for a guy that Casey took in the second round to have the run of games he's had since week one is a killer. Um, and Casey's managed to break through it record wise, but it hasn't been through the help of Derrick Henry.
Yeah, if you get rid of the week one 30-point week, he's been averaging about 6.75 points a week. So tough when you take a guy in the second round to be your running back one to be averaging that number. He's running back 19, and it's purely because of that 30-point bomb in week one. But as of late, has not looked good. There was a little talk of Isaiah Pacheco
Yep,
for Casey, a guy who just
is now on waivers.
no, it's still on still on Casey's team as of now. I think he went on waivers and then he got
Oh,
back.
really? Okay.
Yes, but a guy averaging 6 points hasn't been able to get that bounce back year that I think some people, and I'm sure Casey thought he was going to, but
Splitting time
that
with Kareem Hunt. I mean, almost. It seems like Kareem Hunt's playing more than him.
yeah, and the rookie they got is taking it over. But Derrick Henry, like I said, 6.75 points in the last 4 weeks as a guy that you thought, especially after even week one, thought was going to have another killer season, and is just not been able to get it done.
Nope. So hopefully he can get it together once the market's back. Tanner, another fairly easy pick. We went with Lad McConkey. I think he was Tanner's third or fourth pick. After last year, everyone really thought he was going to be able to pick back up where he left off and be the wide receiver one out of Los Angeles with the Chargers. But the emergence of Quentin Johnston and the return of Keenan Allen has really put a damper on it. I don't know if Ladd has played bad or just been kind of the third mouth to feed there, where he's been left out. He looked better this week, um, but that first 4 games of the season where he was basically unplayable as well can't be ignored.
Yeah, so he was the third pick by Tanner this year. Like you said, this week was a little bit better because he got in the end zone. But I mean, if he doesn't get in the end zone, it's still 5 catches for 39 yards.
Yeah,
You did highlight the other wide receivers in Los Angeles, which I think is a big part of him not having as much success. But when you look at Los Angeles, they had the week one win against Kansas City. Everybody thought, oh, they're going to be here. And then they dropped games to the Giants. They dropped the game against Washington. And it's kind of disappointing team. And Lad McConkey is definitely a disappointing player on that team and on Tanner's roster.
right. Been part of it. I'm gonna let you take this one with Sam. You know who it is.
Yeah, so it's Dylan Sampson. I know Dylan Sampson's not on the team, and I'll give Sam a little bit of credit
The
before
Dylan
I,
Sampson saga
say
in
my
this league.
piece. But when you do look at Sam's team, he doesn't have got like healthy players at least. Like if you look at Aaron Jones and Tyrone Tracy, who've been banged up, and that's definitely part of the reason they're not they're ranked where they are. But when you look at Sam's team, he has a lot of guys who've lived up to the hype or even past it. So credit to Sam there. There's not a lot of guys you can really take on his like that's on his roster right now and be like, oh shoot, yeah, that guy is a disappointment. But Dylan Sampson puts, I think, $40 on Dylan Sampson.
The
I
week that
don't even know if he
Quinshawn
made.
came back.
Yeah, the week Judkins comes back, takes over the backfield, and I don't even think he plays for Sam, so that was kind of brutal there. But yeah, $40 for someone. I don't even think that saw the starting lineup, and I think the week after he put 40 on him had 5 snaps. So tough
Tough.
there to lose $40 on a guy who, it isn't going to be a part of the team.
But you feel good that we couldn't find a different one player that's still on your team.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I mean, you got to give Sam credit. There's not a lot of guys who are huge disappointments. There's
yeah.
guys either slotted right where you think they're going to be, or slightly below or slightly above. So
And this will probably come into play more as we get down towards the bottom. But yeah, Clayton kind of mentioned it. We tried not to just pick guys who have gotten hurt. Guys that have been playing poorly is more what we were going for here. So I think next we've got Cub. This was another tough one. We went back and forth on Sam and Cub for a little bit here. With Cub, we went with Tedero McMillan. I don't want to bash too much on Tedero McMillan because he has been pretty solid for Carolina. He just hasn't gotten in the end zone. That's the big thing. And in fantasy, that's what really is going to elevate you from a low end wide receiver two flex guy into a low end wide receiver one. And if Tech can do that, then he'll be looking great. But he just hasn't been able to find the end zone yet.
yeah, a guy who has looked extremely well. Like if you watch him play football in the NFL. But as you said, we're talking fantasy, and he's wide receiver 31. He's averaging 8.4 points a game. The offense for the Panthers just, you thought maybe Bryce Young was going to take a step because he kind of did last year. At the end of last year, he looked better. This year, that step, he didn't take another step, which does not help Ted out. There was a little conversation of Bill on this one, because until this week, he hadn't done too much. They've been kind of sharing the ball around,
A
but
lot.
because of this week, you just can't put him on this list. So that's why Ted's there. I mean, good on Cub. His team was a harder team to pick from. Like a lot of guys slotted right where they were at, slightly above even for a handful. So tough to pick Cubs, but yeah, you kind of expected maybe Ted was going to be a little bit better than what he is.
Yeah, especially for the fourth to fifth overall pick in the draft. So moving on, another guy that we're getting tougher on the picks here with Scott. We went with Nico Collins, who has not been a bad player by any means, but has not lived up to his draft status. Scott drafted him early second round at 12 overall. So when you're getting a guy at 12 overall, you're expecting a guy that's going to be top six wide receiver at least, and Nico's sitting at 17.
Yeah, definitely, tough there. He hasn't looked bad, like you said, but you were kind of expecting maybe, high end wide receiver one numbers and to get low end wide receiver two numbers. This doesn't add up quite well in terms of like when you look at, this type of stuff. There was talk of Devonta Smith, but at the end of the day, Scott drafted him, in the 6th round.
Quite a bit
He's
later.
kind of like a wide receiver 3 for our league, so that's almost kind of where that would be slotted. We talked slightly about Genty, but I think for him it's just a slow start. He's looked better the last 2 weeks. I know this week he didn't get in the end zone, so he just kind of was stuck at 13. But um, it was too hard to pick Genty because he's still technically right now rated as an RB1. So
Right. Yeah, and the Texans offense just hasn't been quite what you, especially before these last 2 weeks, what you expected it to be. So, all righty. Next up, we have got you. Take it away.
yeah, I think this was the easiest pick of the whole thing. I don't know if that's just because it's my team or just because of how disappointed I am in this player. I know some of it has to do with Joe Burrow's injury. And then when you look at my team too, I guess I'll highlight we stayed away from players that were hurt. So like you look at like a George Kittle or CeeDee Lamb,
CD.
even we just, those are the guys we're just not picking. It's yeah, injuries happen, injuries suck. We're not gonna hammer those injuries. I will say Chase Brown is affected by the Joe Burrow injury, but he's still healthy. He's still on the field. The
A
guy has
lot.
played a ton of snaps for Cincinnati, and
Gets the
right
ball
now
a lot.
Yeah, he's running back 32, averaging 8 points a game. When I drafted him to be a running back one, and he's barely a flex play. I think
I mean, it's
it's
between him and
tough.
Travion at this point on who you're going to start. I'm not saying Travion's the disappointing pick, but the
He is
fact that
though. I
Travion
mean,
has been disappointing and that's the
he,
choices you're having to make here highlights how
yeah.
bad Chase Brown has been.
Yeah, I will say I think there was multiple guys you could have put here for me. Like
Yeah.
Jacoby Myers after the trade hasn't looked good. Travion with all the hype he had going into this season, and the Patriots refused to use their second round pick, which drives me up a wall. But Chase Brown for me is the player I'm most disappointed in. He was drafted in the third round, kind of towards towards I guess I was in the middle. So the middle of the third round, but averaging 8 points and I mean he's a running back three in our league and that's just
It's not
not
good enough.
acceptable for where I
It's not
drafted
good
him.
enough. All right, Bo. This is close to one of the more disappointing picks of the entire draft, just because of how bad Calvin Ridley's been. I think there was some warranted hype after the preseason. Cam Ward had looked good. You get a new quarterback in there that's not Will Levis to throw to Calvin Ridley, who still managed to have some good games last year, and he's just done nothing. I think he's wide receiver 52, and he was
Yep,
drafted in the 6th round.
nailed that. Wide receiver 52 averaging 5.6 points a week right now. I mean, it's not like he hasn't been on the field. He had a good kind of week this week against Arizona with 130 yards, but you look before this week, he was yet to have double digit points. He had 5, 5, 2, and 3. So, um, tough there. When you draft a guy in the 6th round, you expect him to, be a reasonable flex play, probably,
Right.
especially if you're, um, you know,
Should be the wide receiver one on that team.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So tough there. I think when you look at the bottom three teams, as we'll show Joey, I think it's the three most disappointing players, maybe of the draft
Yeah, Chase
that are
Brown
healthy.
is definitely competitive as well for that spot. And then our final guy, as you alluded to, Joey with Brian Thomas Jr., a 2nd round pick who was just awesome as a rookie, and you thought could take a next step with Trevor coming back to play quarterback for the Jags, who suck. Um, but um, Brian Thomas Jr. has not been able to get it done. He made some good catches last night again, but overall has been extremely disappointing for where Joey drafted him.
Yeah, a guy who, I mean, I thought was going to have a huge year. A guy I debated maybe taking over Amon Ra. Glad I didn't. That just made my team
Man,
even sadder and worse.
that would have been
Um,
tough.
He's wide receiver 42, averaging 6.4 points a week. He has yet to have double digits, which also means he has yet to score a touchdown. So this
No,
one,
he ran one in the
okay,
first week. I think he ran one in.
yes, you're right. Yes, he has one carry for 9 yards and a touchdown. Okay, my bad. No receiving touchdowns, and he plays
Yep.
wide receiver. So that's where I was headed. Like I said earlier, when you look at the bottom three guys, the guys who are right now on the outside looking in of the playoff race, and it's only week 5, you probably have three of the most disappointing players. And I'll look at Joey and me and say, I think it's Joey at Brian Thomas Jr. just because he's a 2nd round pick, and then Chase Brown because he's the 3rd round pick, and then I'll throw Calvin Ridley in there because he was a 6th round pick. But Brian Thomas Jr. to draft him in the 2nd round, and he's in Joey's starting lineup every week, but he is right now performing at a wide receiver 4,
Yeah.
and we only start 2 wide receivers in a flex. It's just tough. But how do you not start a guy you took in the 2nd round
When he's healthy.
when
That
he's
doesn't look
healthy?
like anything's
Exactly.
wrong with him other than the drops, but yeah, it's one of those guys that it just hurts too much to bench.
Yep.
So
But
keep the hope up.
that's our
I mean,
most.
he's obviously a talented player, um, and I think with the way the Jags are playing, they could maybe pull it back together. and hopefully all of these disappointed players can pull it back together. Dylan Sampson, I think, has the least chance there, but we'll see about the rest of them.
Yeah, it's tough to put up points when you're not on the field very much, where some of these other players are on the field and they're just not getting it done.
Right. All right, boys. Well, with that, I think we've gone a little longer today. Hopefully, everyone enjoys the extra little bit we've given here today. Um, so let's wrap it up. Any thoughts, Clayton?
Yeah, I'm gonna highlight the Patriots. The only bright spot to my football week this week was watching them beat the Buffalo Bills. I mean, we honestly should be first in our division. That game against the Steelers with all the fumbles really is killing us right now. But to go into Buffalo and to beat the Bills in Buffalo, like I feel like Patriots football's back. Vrabel's got us headed in the right direction. Drake May I'm gonna say outperforming Josh Allen. Sunday night prime
You definitely
time
did.
in Buffalo. I mean, I'm just so hyped for Drake May. He looks absolutely outstanding. Gonzo's back and the defense is back. Huge, huge win for the Patriots.
You well deserved too. You deserve to have some goodness in the football world in your life right now. I will say though, I don't know which hurts worse, having that Steelers loss or honestly the Raiders loss,
Yeah,
because of how
very,
bad
very,
the Raiders look right now. Um,
very fair.
but we won't harp on it. The Chiefs obviously didn't get it done, but they look awesome. Everyone knows they look awesome, and if you're not betting on them to be, the last time the Chiefs were 2-3, they ended up hosting the AFC Championship. I fully expect them to be there again this year, so not worried. And a great consolation prize is being 9-1 and watching everyone try to catch up. So
Yeah, absolutely killing it in fantasy, even though the Chiefs aren't. But it's tough to bet against Patrick Mahomes, so I wouldn't worry too much yet.
not yet. All right, boys. Well, with that, we're gonna wrap it up. Say goodnight. We'll talk to y'all soon again. Come up with this week 6 matchups episode and have some more thoughts for you.
Good luck, everyone. Hope the
Have a
injury
good week,
bug doesn't
gentlemen.
hit you as hard as it's hitting me.
Talk to y'all soon.
Our special baby.
An hour special.